Welcome inside the Q30 Sports Studios. I'm Bryan Schwartz alongside Jonathan Banks, and this is a special edition of Bobcat Game Day. After the Quinnipiac men's lacrosse game today, the Quinnipiac men's lacrosse team faced the Marist Red Foxes in the 2019 MAAC championship game. 15-14 loss for Quinnipiac. Marist is the MAAC title winner. Jonathan, what happened at that game?
Well, I mean, what happened was Marist got the win, but it was really a back and forth game. The broadcasters described it as a ping pong effect, which is really cool. And you couldn't want anything more than that in a championship game. Quinnipiac started out hot early. Dimitri George won 6 straight faceoffs for Quinnipiac. And the key to Marist offense is to get the ball inside and to score from those inside areas. And Quinnipiac did a great job of stopping that, especially swarming the middle of the field there. And Quinnipiac didn't really dominate on the scoreboard. They were able to get ahead in increments of 5-2, for example, and really make Marist play from behind, something they haven't really done all year.
Right, and I think that was the big part of it, was that Quinnipiac was out in front a lot early and made Marist play from behind, which Marist was 6-1 in the conference this year. So they're not used to that. They're the cream of the crop in the MAAC, and they haven't been behind a lot of teams at all this year.
Yeah.
That makes a big impact.
And it reminds me of Quinnipiac's team, not this year, but last year when they were upset by Canisius in the first round of the MAAC tournament last year. But they were beating everybody, and they were always ahead last year. And this year, this is kind of Marist who was able to kind of set the tone early on in the conference, and everyone was chasing Marist. And Marist beat Quinnipiac 12-8 earlier in the year, so this was almost a redemption of sorts for Quinnipiac if they got the job done.
Well, let's check it out, and let's see if they got the job done. And we'll bring you the highlight right now. All right, so Quinnipiac and Marist in the MAAC championship game. Mason Polly, his first ever MAAC championship game as the head coach, and there we go in Poughkeepsie.
It was a MAAC postseason record for Quinnipiac, scoring 19 goals against Detroit Mercy in the semifinals. So they're going to look to get the offense rolling early.
All right, well, let's take it out to the first quarter, where it's Quinnipiac's Matt Frost. He scores and makes it 3-1.
That's such a nice finish from close range to kind of change the body angle. They're going to shoot it towards the right as you look at it again, but instead gets it with the left side and gets it to go.
Then we see the Quinnipiac senior Mike Fletcher spinning and finding space to increase Quinnipiac's lead to 5-2.
Now this is something Fletcher's been doing his entire career, just finding the open space and ripping that into the back of the net. That's a flamethrower. And look at him flex there, Bryan.
I love that. Love to see that. Having fun with it. Now Jamison Embry of Marist off the back door for a goal. 6-4 Quinnipiac after one. Remember that name.
Yeah, Embry really thrives in those one-on-one situations, which we'll see a little later in the highlight, but he finishes from close range there.
Second quarter, Marist charging. Chris Schlappick falls as he shoots, scores 7-6 now, Quinnipiac.
Such a difficult shot there.
Now Embry again, tying the score at 8 at the end of the first half.
Yeah, he just said, get off me right there to the defender. But again, in a one-on-one situation and getting really close to the net and finding a way to finish.
Now we take it out to the third quarter, where Embry again, he scores the go-ahead goal for Marist. Their first lead of the game, 9-8.
He was on an island, and Quinnipiac really needed to try and stop him. They weren't able to do so.
Marist pulls ahead 11-9. Quinnipiac fighting back. Will Abbott ties it up.
Yeah, Will Abbott, the freshman phenom, as some might call it. Nice finish there to get it low into the near post.
Marist scores 3 in a row. Quinnipiac scores 3 in a row, including this one from Jake Thompson.
Nice finish from Thompson. Led the team in goals, and Quinnipiac needed this here. Marist scored right before that to take a 2-goal lead, and the Bobcats really needed something to happen.
Down 1, 15-14. One final shot for Quinnipiac. Tyler McKay, but a nice save from Jake McGregor. And that'll do it. Marist, your MAAC champion.
Quinnipiac gets a decent look at the end, but it all comes down to who's going to make that final play, and Marist got the stop when they needed it.
So Marist wins the 2019 MAAC championship and will head to the NCAA tournament. And we talked about it before the highlight. Now when we look at it again, that hot start for Quinnipiac was huge, and that kept them in the game the whole time, because they kind of struggled a little bit as the game went on, but that hot start really kept them in it.
And basketball and lacrosse are two things. They're both games of runs, and Quinnipiac gets that run early, and that's exactly when you wanted to jump out to that big 5-2 lead there, and they were just swarming early and often. Foster Cuomo, when he has the ball on his stick, he is so dangerous, almost as dangerous as anyone in the entire conference. He was able to get some good looks. Will Abbott got the goals going early, and for Quinnipiac, they just need to jump on them early. Dimitri George, the freshman, did a great job with that, especially in the first quarter, inside the X there, winning different faceoffs.
Yeah, Quinnipiac led 6-4 early on. They led 15-7 on shots, 13-4 shots on goal, 11-3 on ground balls. So they really dominated that first quarter.
But they didn't get too many goals. They dominated,
Right.
like you said, they dominated the stat sheet. They filled the stat sheet, to be honest, but you only got 5 or 6 goals to show for it.
Right, and they only had a 2-goal lead, which ultimately didn't end up proving to be enough. All right, so moving on, the different approaches from both teams. As the ESPNU broadcast went on, we kind of listened to the broadcasters and heard what they had to say. And they talked a lot about the different approaches between both of these teams, Quinnipiac and Marist.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up because Marist was a team that they're very methodical. They'll let the shot clock run down, find that open look, and we talked about this earlier. They like to get the ball inside, and that's where Embry and players of that magnitude thrive. So they like to get the ball early and often inside and actually work the shot clock, so not as early and often. But Quinnipiac likes to get it going early and often. The run and gun offense, they really like to run down the field there and trying to get something happen, early shots. And this was kind of epitomized in that last sequence we saw at the end of the highlight when Jake Thompson got the goal. But before that, Marist runs the shot clock down and then is able to get a nice finish there. So that's really something that Marist does that Quinnipiac doesn't do. And the different approaches, it kind of depends on what each team prefers. But Marist loves that methodical, let me get it in the right position offense. And Quinnipiac's like, let's fire shots on goal and see what happens.
And you talked about Jamison Embry a little bit, and part of that methodical approach towards today's game, Jamison Embry was really able to get his shots.
Yeah, and during the broadcast, you could hear sluggo being yelled, and that means slow go. So you can interpret it in different ways, but for me personally, it's like get Jamison Embry on an island, get him one-on-one with defenders, make him score. And that's what Marist wanted. That's what Quinnipiac didn't want. And Quinnipiac didn't have an answer for him. Whenever he was one-on-one, he would just shove off defenders like it was nothing and really find a way to put the ball in the back of the net. And he did that. I believe he scored 4 times off the top of my head. But regardless, Marist had a really dangerous offensive player. They have 3 really dangerous offensive players, and Embry was the one who stole the headlines tonight.
Embry had a great game today. We'll have more from that coming up in a little bit. Also, we'll have Mason Polly post-game, as well as Q30 Sports beat reporters Aaron Robinson and John Surratt. Stick with us.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Let's get it going. Sports Ball starts right now.
We start tonight with some basketball coverage.
And here again, Aaron Robinson hits the shot of his life. I don't know what that celebration is, MJ, but I'm loving it.
Is that Fortnite?
And we welcome you back to Studio 125 for Q30 Sports' coverage of the 2019 MAAC Men's Lacrosse Championship game. Quinnipiac fell to Marist 15-14. Let's hear from Quinnipiac's head coach, Mason Polly, following the game.
Unfortunately, we put 4 quarters there, down by 1 with 45 seconds left, and hit a pipe game of inches, and unfortunately just didn't bounce our way today.
It looked like you guys had a couple of turnovers, like also 2 errant passes and everything. Just talk about the opportunity that you guys maybe could have capitalized on that you maybe didn't.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, obviously I brought that last play into the last question. But it is those little plays throughout the game that you have to look at. I thought we did a great job riding the ball today. A couple opportunities, we got that ball back, and rather than taking it and settling it and using that shot clock, I thought we rushed it a little bit. Defensively, I think we needed to sharpen up. Wasn't our best day down there, but made timely stops in the end and gave us an opportunity to get a W.
Coach, one of the talking points coming in was, Marist's success in the face-off dot. I haven't seen the final stats, but what is your take on how the face-offs panned out today?
We neutralized them. I was just taking a peek, 50% on the day. Got ourselves into trouble early in the first half with those 2 violations on the first 2 face-offs. Kind of dug ourselves behind, gave them some extra man opportunities. Didn't let us do what we wanted there. And then the second half, it was about 50-50, so be able to neutralize them there and kind of split those possessions was huge.
Is there a certain aspect of today's game that you thought made the difference?
Again, those violations early on, I thought we were winning a lot, but trying to put us behind there, losing some possessions, getting those man downs. They started really holding the ball in that second quarter and limiting our opportunities there. And defensively, just I think a few more stops would have gone a long way.
One more. When you look at your first year as interim coach, when you look back on it, say a year from now, or 2 years, 5 years from now? What's going to make you most proud about this team?
The way they fought. They came to work every day. It would have been really easy to kind of give up, use this as an excuse. From day one, it was, this doesn't define us. Let's kind of rewrite our story here. And again, to get to this point with some of the hurdles that we had to get over, I'm so proud of the guys.
John, you can go.
I'm coaching just so, 3 All-MAAC rookie selections. So what do you think about the potential of this team going forward with all the young guys and Jake Thompson being a sophomore as well?
I'm excited. We had the opportunity early in the year to get some younger guys on the field that might not necessarily have played. So now they've got some experience under their belt and some depth. We bring in a really good freshman class next year that we're excited about. So to have some comfortability with the rollover and be allowing to have some opportunities for freshmen to compete. We want a competitive roster that's pushing each other and guys wanting to get on the field.
That was Quinnipiac head coach Mason Polly following the game. Now we're going to turn it over to our Q30 Sports beat reporters. We toss it to Aaron Robinson and John Surratt, who were live in Poughkeepsie after the game with their thoughts.
What do you think was the main factor that caused Quinnipiac to lose this game?
Aaron, I think it was the turnovers. Quinnipiac 14, the Marist is 9, five differential right there. A lot of the time they were going on attack and just lazy passes, lazy overall, not really communicating well. And so that just all accumulated to them not, coming out with the win. 1 goal game, and they had possession with 48 seconds left. One of those extra possessions that they lost, big key factor in the game. Really can change everything if they just kept 1 possession in their favor.
Yep. So also, one of the big talking points coming into the game was Marist and the faceoff. So Marist coming into the game was ranked 6th nationally in faceoff percentage. Now Quinnipiac was able to win 16 other 32 faceoffs today. So John, how do you think faceoffs played a part in the game today?
I think it kept it even. Like Dimitri George, great freshman, all rookie MAAC team this year. One of the 3 all rookie MAAC team. But he played great today. Besides, there was a time when in the first half, he got three infractions, and then he got a 4th, so there was a penalty. But besides that, he kept it even. That's the reason that kept them in the game. They got those extra possessions on those faceoffs, even though they lost them in those turnovers that we just talked about. George really stepped in throughout the whole season. It showed that he was, to me, the most dominant man in the faceoff circle. And so for him to show out today against one of the top teams in Marist and faceoff, it was huge for them to get those extra possessions.
You talked about these 3 all-rookie selections that they had this year. They have a lot of young talent coming back and a good recruiting class coming in next year that they're excited about. So what can you say about the promise of this program?
Aaron, like I said, three rookies, Nick DiMuccio, Will Abbott. Will Abbott also made first-team All-MAAC. And Dimitri George, just as I talked about, all of them combined to make a really good effort. They also have really good sophomores as well. Jake Thompson's a sophomore, led them in goal scoring. It shows the effort throughout all of their sophomores and freshmen. And you mentioned their incoming freshman class. This team has a really good shot in the MAAC still. With all their losing, they still got a lot of good help here with everyone coming back and them coming away with a loss by 1 goal to Marist. It shows a lot of promise to them that they're a really young team, but we're able to step up today.
Thank you, Aaron and John. And now come back to me and Jonathan right now in Studio 125. And Jonathan, a new coach for this team. We heard him earlier from the press conference, Mason Polly. His first season, and he's already in the MAAC title game.
Yeah, it's been difficult, but he's handled it with a lot of professionalism and just showing his leadership skills right from the get-go. I mean, not having seniors for that little portion of the first part of the season, and he was really able to grind even without playing fall ball. Just getting a team to the MAAC championship is an accomplishment in itself. Being a young coach able to do it for the first time in your first year, I don't even care what conference you're in. If you get to the title game in any conference, that's an accomplishment in itself. And Mason Polly's done a great job managing people, managing his team, and guiding them to the final.
Yeah, they were 2 goals away right there. And then you get to the NCAA tournament in your first year as a head coach right there. So a terrific job by Mason Polly this year. And he'll have a good class coming for next year. He talked about in this press conference of an incoming freshman class. And also he has a good young core still. But what leaves him is the senior class, and we know there are a lot of big names in this senior class, a lot of key faces that have been around this program a while and have been a big part of the success that the program has had the last few years.
Yeah, I know goal scoring is not the only thing, but Foster Cuomo and Mike Fletcher, 35 goals, 33 goals each respectively. That's a lot of goals that you're going to have to make up. And Foster Cuomo, besides that, a big-time player. Just think about today. Quinnipiac gets a man-up advantage. Cuomo scores. They needed a goal there to keep it within striking distance. Just little instinctive things like that. You have Jake Tomczyk back, but you need more goal scoring, and I think they're going to fill that next year with the depth that they get. But this senior class has been huge. Not just not just Fletcher and Cuomo, but everyone in general.
Right. They're losing a lot, but they're also gaining a lot in the incoming freshman class. All right. Well, we'll take another quick break before we wrap things up. Coming up, Quinnipiac had 2 all-tournament team members. We'll check out that list, and we'll tell you who made it from Quinnipiac and the rest of the conference coming up.
Let's get
One
it
more
going.
block.
Sports Ball starts right now.
We start tonight with some basketball coverage.
And here again, Aaron Robinson hits the shot of his life. I don't know what that celebration is, MJ, but I'm loving it.
Is that Fortnite?
Do you like debate?
That's a converted relief pitcher making the start because it was a doubleheader. You got no hit by a relief pitcher. You can't tell me that's not embarrassing.
Analysis.
You can see his stance, his positioning right there is excellent.
And a side of entertainment.
Is he right or is he crazy?
Well, we all know the answer to that. He's a bit crazy, but I gotta say, you know.
Then join us on Bobcat Breakdown.
From the court to the ice to here on the diamond, we'll discuss everything you need to know about Quinnipiac athletics.
Bobcat Breakdown, Tuesdays at 9:30.
Thanks for sticking with us on the Q30 Sports post-game show of a special edition of Bobcat Game Day following Quinnipiac's 15-14 loss to Marist in the 2019 MAAC Men's Lacrosse Championship game. He's Jonathan Banks. I'm Bryan Schwartz, and before we wrap things up, Quinnipiac had 2 all-tournament team members in this series, in the 2 games that they played in the MAAC Championship Series. So it was for Quinnipiac, Foster Cuomo and Mike Fletcher were the 2 that made the MAAC all-tournament team. 11 goals for Cuomo, 9 goals for Fletcher. Both of them made a big impact.
Yeah, and it makes sense here. You're going to pick 2 players from Quinnipiac. Nick DiMuccio played really well in net, but I would go Cuomo and Fletcher if I would take 2 from Quinnipiac as well. You think about the goal scoring that Quinnipiac's going to lose. We talked about this a little bit with the senior class. McKay was 4th, I believe, on the team with 21 goals. Cuomo, Fletcher, 33, 35. That's a lot of goals they're going to have to make up, and those guys came up big when Quinnipiac needed the most and really got them a goal away from the NCAA tournament.
Big numbers for both of them, and it's going to be a big hole to replace next year. The MVP of the MAAC tournament was Joe Tierney from Marist. All right, he's Jonathan Banks. I'm Bryan Schwartz as we wrap things up and say so long on this men's lacrosse season. And for Bobcat Game Day and all our producers and crew behind the scenes, we thank you very much and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Q30 Sports. Be sure to follow all of our content at Q30 Sports on Twitter and Q30TV.com. We'll see you next time.